eu is probably the most mispronounced word by foreigners in European Portuguese. And for good reason, because it includes a sound that doesn't exist, at least in English. But that is not the biggest problem you have. I would argue that not distinguishing eu in natural fast speech from ele, he, is a problem. In fact, it's a huge one, because it will leave you confused as to who did what. Eu lavo o carro. Who washes the car? If you know the answer, you can move on with your life. If you didn't catch it, then I suggest you stick till the end. Olá, eu sou Catarina, a Portuguese polyglot at the Language Unschool. I'll help you find your voice in European Portuguese. If you struggle to understand naturally spoken Portuguese, you're on the right spot, because that's precisely what I normally focus on this channel. Today I'll help you with 4 things. How eu is pronounced, how it differentiates from il, how to tell eu and il apart in fast speech, and a story to help your ears get used to the difference. Eu is often mispronounced as eu, which is a sound of disgust made in English. Now, we don't want to associate I with eu, do we? So the difference lies in the e. European Portuguese has tons of different ways of pronouncing this letter. I'll leave a link to this video below in the description. If you drop the w sound and focus on the e, then slowly do a e, notice how I'm smelling more. E. I'm happy with myself. See, learning a language can be therapeutic. Just note we will smile a lot less when we speak fast. Eu, not eu. Sometimes it's important to exaggerate to really understand the mechanics of a sound, and then you can relax. Once you got that e right, add the w sound. E, w, eu, eu. Now, why are you not hearing the difference between eu and il? It's actually very simple, and I explain it in more detail in this video. But I will summarize. If you pronounce il in Cinderella Portuguese, and speaking of which, you can download my free No Cinderella pronunciation guide below to start making sense of how we pronounce things in European Portuguese. But as I was saying, if you pronounce il in a more textbook way, you will get e, l. 2 syllables, which means the L is going to be a light L. E, l, l. But we don't really pronounce the E's at the end of words, so that L actually becomes a dark L, because it's at the end of a syllable. Il, il. You have the dark L in English too. A good example would be fall. Notice where your tongue is in your mouth. So we go from il to il. Il, il, il. And what does this have to do with eu? Well, a lot, because the difference between eu and il, pronounced with a dark L, is that in eu, my lips are round, while in il, I'm smiling. The u and the l are actually pronounced the exact same way. This means the difference is small. And I understand when you guys mix the two, either because you can't hear the difference or because you can't pronounce the difference. Now, since I've covered the pronunciation side of things, now the next question is how to tell eu and il apart in fast speech. Well, I'm afraid you won't like the answer, but there you have it. The verb and context. As you may already know, the end of the verb will change according to who is performing the action in Portuguese. Eu lavo, tu lavas, ele lava. Normally, the eu form will end with an o in the present tense, and the il form will end with an a or an e, depending on the kind of verb it is. But you might not yet be used to hearing those really soft final vowels, right? I was a bit mean with my sentence earlier, eu lavo o carro, because I gave you no context whatsoever. 0. In irregular verbs, the difference is normally more audible. Eu vou, ele vai. Eu sou, ele é. Eu faço, ele faz. And when that difference is super obvious on paper, we even tend to skip the eu and il in speech, and also in writing, because the verb actually tells us who does what. The issue is when the verb is conjugated exactly the same way. This happens a lot in the past tense. Eu era, ele era. Eu estava, ele estava. Eu lavava, ele lavava. Does this mean you then need to say or write the subject? That will depend on a few factors. The important thing to retain here is, if it's not clear who the subject is, then you should state it. But what if your foreign ears still can't pick up the difference between eu and il in fast speech? Don't worry, I'll help. I'll tell you a short story now. Please turn off the captions if you have them on. First, you'll listen and try to guess if I say eu or il. I won't sugarcoat it the first time. The second time though, I'll repeat the same story at a slower pace, emphasizing the eu and il, but I'll show you the text with the translation so you can see if you heard it correctly. Remember that a lot of it will be about the verb. You see, you thought verbs would be the end of your Portuguese, but they are actually your friend, not your foe. Bora lá. No outro dia, eu estava a ver-me ao espelho e reparei que os meus músculos estão a ficar parecidos com os do Arnold Schwarzenegger. A sério, eu não estou a brincar. Ok, ele tem uns músculos muito maiores do que eu, mas ele é homem. Eu sou mulher. Eu sei que eu nunca vou ter os músculos iguais aos dele, mas mesmo assim, eu acho que para lá caminho. Eu ouvi dizer que ele consegue levantar 100 quilos. Pois eu já consigo levantar 2. Espetáculo! Eu quero levantar mais, mas não tenho tempo. Aposto que ele tem todo o tempo do mundo. Que faz exercício 3 horas por dia. Eu só faço 5 minutos. Não tenho tempo para mais. No outro dia, eu estava a ver-me ao espelho e reparei que os meus músculos estão a ficar parecidos com os do Arnold Schwarzenegger. A sério, eu não estou a brincar. Ok, ele tem uns músculos muito maiores do que eu, mas ele é homem. Eu sou mulher. Eu sei que eu nunca vou ter os músculos iguais aos dele. Mas mesmo assim, eu acho que para lá caminho. Eu ouvi dizer que ele consegue levantar 100 quilos, pois eu já consigo levantar 2. Espetáculo! Eu quero levantar mais, mas não tenho tempo. Aposto que ele tem todo o tempo do mundo, que faz exercício 3 horas por dia. Eu só faço 5 minutos. Não tenho tempo para mais. That was the story. Remember to check my No Cinderella pronunciation guide to start making sense of the way we speak. Understanding the way the Portuguese speak will make a huge difference in both your listening comprehension and your pronunciation. I hope the distinction between eu and il is clearer now. Eu, meaning you, is important, and your voice in Portuguese matters. Obrigada por verem, obrigada por me ouvirem. Até à próxima.